Let's get cracking. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Happy Wednesday. Today, we're going to be talking about Webgility Online's inventory capabilities, sort of where we see the product going in the future as far as features and benefits that it carries. And Parag's going to be talking a lot today about not only the capabilities that Webgility Online has and what it can offer, but how to kind of manage your inventory in QuickBooks Online and your store. And we're looking to get some feedback from you guys as well on kind of where to take the product and what you guys think is important. So obviously, Parag doesn't need much of an introduction, but I'll let him kind of kick things off.
Great. Thanks, John. Hello, everyone. Thanks you so much for taking your time out of your busy day. I know it's challenging times in the market, and I really appreciate you spending your Wednesday morning with us. My name is Parag Mamnani. I'm the founder CEO of Webgility. Been in the e-commerce space now for 2 decades, and Webgility has been around for now about 15 years. So I've had the pleasure of working with lots of small businesses like yourselves and really helping businesses automate all the different parts of their commerce operations, especially focused on accounting. But we also do obviously inventory, listings, purchase order management, and so forth. And today's webinar is very much focused around inventory and product management. And I'll be spending a little bit of time to kind of walk through what does it look like in QuickBooks, specifically QuickBooks Online, to manage your product catalog. We're going to use a demo store of Shopify. I know different customers use a variety of different sales channels to sell online, but we're going to use Shopify as the primary example in our walkthrough today. And it will look and feel a little different from your particular channel if you're not on Shopify, but the core functionality will be about the same. I'll also spend a little bit of time in going through the product itself, and I'm hoping this is an interactive session, so I know everybody's on mute right now, but we'll open the lines up. If you have any questions, please use the chat section of the uh, GoToWebinar panel, and there's also a questions area. You can actually type in some questions and we'll be happy to answer them. But we'll also go ahead and open up the lines so you can actually speak and we get a chance to interact. And as John pointed out, our goal today is to not just talk about what's in our Webgility Online product and how you can make the most out of the inventory management capabilities we have and to make sure you're not overselling, but also take a sneak peek into what we're building at Webgility in terms of new inventory and product management capabilities, and certainly to get some of your feedback on that as well. So hopefully this will be an interactive session. I would love to have you participate. Before we dive in, and I know some people are still trickling in to the webinar, but it'd be great to actually ask a quick question, just so I have a good pulse on what you are currently using for your inventory management. And that way, this will give me kind of a baseline of how to tailor the presentation. So we have a poll. It's which system do you use as your master? Like, what is your primary catalog and inventory management system? And we'll go ahead and kick off that poll. So John, if you could bring up the poll, we can ask the audience and we can then dive right into the presentation.
I am on it, and I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll now. We'll give it a minute or so just to give you guys enough time to answer the poll. Once everybody has submitted their answers, I'll kind of bring the results up on screen.
Excellent. And what we're really trying to figure out is what do you use as your master catalog and where do you track your inventory? So it's a pretty critical process. It's a pretty critical question to figuring out what your inventory management process needs to be, because if you're using one system versus the other, that's going to change how you keep things in sync, how your purchasing workflows are going to be set up, and also different systems have different capabilities. And I'll take a few minutes to kind of walk through the capabilities of the different systems as well when it comes to product and inventory management. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind, take just a second here. I see most people have already voted, just a couple more votes missing. If you could take a read. The first option is your store. So if you're using your actual online sales channel as your master for managing your catalog, all your products and your inventory are always up to date there, or you are still using Excel. If you're using QuickBooks Online, or an inventory management system, or some other system. So I see everyone's voted. The results are in, and so John, go ahead. Let's see what the results are.
We are good to go, and here are the results.
Excellent. So what we see here is that almost about half of you, 43%, are using your online channel as your system of record for your catalog and your inventory. 14% are using QuickBooks Online. Another 14% using some sort of other dedicated inventory or warehouse management system. And 29% are saying other. Maybe I should have had an option for not tracking products in inventory. We'll come back to that. Would love to hear what the other option is for most of you. But clearly, it looks like most folks are using their e-commerce channel as their master catalog, and some of you are using QuickBooks Online. So that's really helpful. Thank you. We'll go ahead and close out the poll, and I'll switch my view here from the presentation over to sharing with you guys the products and services tab that's in QuickBooks Online. So most of you, I hope, are already familiar with this view. You should know that inventory management and product management in the QuickBooks Online product is I want to say it's financially robust, but it's not as feature rich as your e-commerce channels might be, which is why I'm actually not surprised that most of you are using your online channels as your master catalog, because your online sales channel actually will have a lot of capabilities in terms of being able to um, set certain uh, product parent items, your variations. You can have all of those capabilities in your online channel. And I'll walk you through real quick how it all works in Shopify. Most of you, I assume, are already familiar with it since you are using your online channel as your inventory management system. But this is what the inventory management process in QuickBooks looks like. So in QuickBooks, you can basically have what I call a flat product list. And you can essentially create a new product in QuickBooks by specifying what type of item it is. In most cases, you're going to be tracking inventory. So you'll create an inventory item type. And once you've created the item, there are some fields that you fill out in QuickBooks to specify details. So the primary field that's used by QuickBooks is the name field. The name is the field that appears in almost all of QuickBooks transactions and forms, but there's also a SKU field, which is not mandatory. You can create a product with a name in QuickBooks, but not actually give it a SKU. I would strongly urge you to have SKUs in QuickBooks. It is a great shorthand identifier. Product names tend to get very verbose, and especially if you have a decent sized catalog, you'll end up with a lot of names that'll look the same, but they're not the same product. And SKUs are just a great short form way of tracking your inventory in QuickBooks. Also in QuickBooks, you can create categories. So just like your online channel, you have the ability to create a category. You can set your initial quantity on hand and set the start date of when that quantity becomes available. That's important because that's when you can start to track your inventory asset. And that's the starting point at which those products will be available for you to sell and both to create purchase orders against to refill. You have a product description, a sales price. You can set the income account for how to record the income from that sale. If you're going to do purchase orders inside QuickBooks, you can set a purchase description, which is different from your sales description. You can set a cost, put an expense account. So specifically for inventory, you'd likely have a cost of goods sold. And you can set a preferred vendor for a particular item. Now, I'm just walking you through these fields so you have an idea of kind of what product catalogs and an inventory management would look like in QuickBooks. And we'll walk through the same for Shopify. So at a very high level, you have this sort of a flat structure where you can categorize things in QuickBooks into different categories, but really you have a name, a SKU, an item type, a description, and so forth. And you could always go in and just hit edit and change the values of a particular item. and hit save and close. And what's really fascinating is if you're just getting started with QBO, I think most of you are not, but if you're just getting started, products and services doesn't even show up as a menu item. You actually need to go add it, or you have to set yourself as a certain business type, and that's when product and services starts to appear as an item on your left. But you can find it under here. And services are also item types in QuickBooks. So it's not just inventory that's an item, but also services can be set up as different item types with different rates. But we're going to focus on products and inventory at this point. Also, this is the way that QuickBooks views the world. It looks at what products are in your catalog, focusing on the accounting aspects. So which asset account is allocated, which income account comes into play to actually record the income from the transaction, and the expense account that comes into play when you do the purchasing. Those are the key things that matter, and those are all the fields that are very specific to QuickBooks. Now, if I switch over to our demo store, this is a Shopify demo store. Again, if you're not using Shopify, you're using another e-commerce channel, it'll look about the same, and maybe some fields will vary. The view might be different, but the concepts behind inventory management in Shopify are also going to be very similar. So like QuickBooks, in Shopify, you could basically, create a new product. I'm just going to hit add product, and you're going to specify the title, the description. You can add media, which is different images for the item, even videos. You can set a price. There's a compare at price, which is just sort of a way to set a retail value that'll kind of cross off and give you the actual price. You can specify whether you have, what the cost is. So cost is optional. You don't have to record the cost of the item in your online store. You can specify whether you would like to track quantity. So in case you're selling digital products or you're doing drop shipping, you don't have to set this value to track quantity. But for the purposes of our demo, you'd want to do track quantity because the whole point is we want to keep our inventory in sync. In Shopify and in various e-commerce channels, you can also specify kind of multiple locations you might be selling on. So if you want to allocate inventory to a certain location, you can do so. You have the option to continue selling when it's out of stock. So if you want to keep selling it. And then all the way here at the bottom, you'll see that there's a SKU field here. And again, SKU is the unique identifier for the item. And I strongly recommend, even if you have a title and a description, make sure you're setting SKUs, the stock keeping unit for each product in your catalog. And you can set physical product weights. You can also create variants. So say you're selling a shirt and you sell it in small, medium, large, or in multiple colors. Then you can basically create, you can sort of specify size and create a small, medium, large, and you hit done, and it sort of automatically creates these 3 variants for you. And then you can go in and set the price of each variant and the SKU of each variant. So ultimately, everything in your catalog should have a name, everything in your catalog should have a SKU. And what you'll notice is the fundamental difference here between your catalog in QuickBooks and your catalog in Shopify is that your Shopify catalog is much more rich. It's got images, compare prices, it's got multi-location support, ability to do a barcode, different weights, and all of these are really critical because when you're selling online, you're going to need these values to determine, who you're selling to, where to ship the product to, what the shipping costs might be, and so forth. So these are all, and it's also a great browsing experience for your customers. So you can also set a product as active or draft. So if you don't want to immediately sell it, you can mark it as draft and then set it to active. But I'm going to leave this page and go back here. And what I really wanted to point out with this overview is that you can see that fundamentally, QuickBooks takes a view of your catalog as a flat list of items. And it's most focused on what's actually, what is the asset so that you can do the accounting correctly, and what is the income account and the expense account when you do sales or purchases for the product. The financial tracking of those products is what's most critical to QuickBooks because that's your accounting system of record. What's most important to Shopify, you would have noticed there's no inventory asset account. There's no cost account here because Shopify is not your accounting system. Shopify is your catalog, and it's where customers get to see all of your products. And so it's focused on media. It's focused on how to make your views richer for your consumers, your customers, to come and buy the product. And so you can specify you can create a much richer multi-dimensional catalog in your Shopify channel as opposed to what you can do in QuickBooks. But what's really important is that in order for you to do your accounting accurately, especially for those of you that track, that like to track inventory in QuickBooks and also keep track of every transaction, every sale that occurred on your online store, transactional accounting. You can't create the transaction in QuickBooks. You can't have revenue coming into QuickBooks if you don't allocate accounts against which that revenue is to be tracked. And so when you have a catalog in your online store, you got to make sure that the products are available in QuickBooks to sell. Otherwise, your asset reporting is going to be off. You're not going to know which income account you want to track it against. And if you're generating purchase orders, that's also going to make life really difficult for you. So having your catalog match up correctly between your online channel and QuickBooks is really important. And I'm going to walk you through here in a second how that'll happen. But before I do have another quick poll I'd love for you guys to take, and that is if you could share with us kind of the size of your catalog, and if you could take just a second and select one of the following, whether you have less than 100 items, 10 to 100, maybe 100 to 1,000, or more than 1,000 products. So the first option is actually less than 10. I think it's a bit of a typo there, but if you have less than 10 products, go ahead and select the first option. Over 100 products, go ahead and select option 3, and more than 1,000, go ahead and select the last option. Just waiting on 1 or 2 more people here to answer, and we can button up the poll. Just take a second here. Cool. I think most of the votes are, all the votes are in. John, let's go ahead and see the results. Okay, excellent. So great. So I have a relatively, I would say, oops, there goes my light. I have a relatively experienced crowd here then, since your catalogs are fairly sizable and you have the ability then, you have more than 100 products likely, and likely more than 1,000 for a quarter of you. So this will be a very useful webinar as we walk through all the different features. Coming back, so if you could close the poll, thank you, John. Okay, so we're back to our view here. So for all of you, since you have over 100 products, what's going to happen is, and I'm just going to log in. So I'm going to log into Webgility Online. And when you log into Webgility Online, I won't spend a lot of time in this webinar walking through all of the non-product and inventory related features. We're going to be doing a lot more of these webinars. I'm going to be doing more of these webinars, so hopefully you'll participate and we'll get a chance to talk more about even the accounting and analytics and some of the other elements. But focusing specifically on your product catalog, the first thing that you got to do in Webgility Online is we need to know, how does your catalog between your online store get matched up with your catalog in your QuickBooks? So remember, the name and title fields are available in your store, but I love having the SKU because I think that's a unique identifier that's most helpful. And we actually have a blog post on this, I believe, that how to kind of set up your SKUs, but definitely check that out. Make sure you have a good system. And if you have over 100 or 1,000 products in your catalog, I'm sure you've got some sort of a system to manage your products. But the first thing I'm going to jump in and do is I'm actually going to go over to accounting settings and jump over to the product catalog, this products tab. So in the product tab, the most critical thing is we need to specify what is the field that we're going to use to identify the product. So whenever you get a sale for an item in your online channel, you want to make sure you can match it to the right item in your QuickBooks. And so this identifier is really key. That's how Webgility knows that these products are the same. Otherwise, it won't know how to actually create a transaction with that order. So you have two choices here, the SKU and product name, the product name and SKU in accounting, and I like to keep the SKU to match the SKU. So as long as your SKUs in your online channel match your SKUs in QuickBooks Online, that'll be perfect. And then you have a few choices on what to do when products are not found for a particular transaction. So the way that Webgility works is if you have all of your catalog in QuickBooks and you're managing purchase orders, then you inevitably want to create a new item if it's not found. But you might have products that are mismatched. Maybe the SKUs don't line up correctly between the items, and you might choose a different alternative. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the product tab. We'll come back to the settings here, but I just wanted to show you that under accounting, under products, you get to match your sales channel SKU with your accounting SKU. And now I'm going to go over to the product catalog tab. And so what Webgility is doing here is we're pulling all of the products from your Shopify store. In this case, in this particular demo, I'm pulling it from this demo 3, and I'm going to pull all the products from QuickBooks, and we're running a matching algorithm that's based on SKUs that says, what products do you have in QuickBooks? What products do we see in your Shopify? And if they match up, we're going to make them match. And if they don't match up, we're going to show you that they're not available in QuickBooks. So as you can see, I just ran this. My product catalog is these items. So just so we're clear, these are the list of items that are in my store. So you can see I have, for example, this Ohana Waves t-shirt. I have it available in all of these sizes, small, medium, large. These are the SKUs for the items. And Webgility pulled in Ohana XXL all the way through small. And I also have the simple SKU product. So I basically pulled in the entire catalog, and now Webgility knows these products are in my online store, but as the tab says here, they're not in QuickBooks. So if these were not in QuickBooks, how do I get them into QuickBooks? So I'm just going to take one product. Let's just take the SKU Simple, for example. And all you got to do is, since it's not in QuickBooks, I'm going to go ahead and create. And I'm going to pop back over here to QuickBooks, and we'll go ahead and hit refresh. You can see one item was successfully created, and I'm back here in QuickBooks, and the simple product with the SKU of inventory type and these details was created. And you can see that the sale price, the SKU, the simple product description, the inventory asset account, the COGS account, all of these fields got pre-populated, and this is a simple product with no variation. So it's also brought in the description of that simple product from my Shopify store. So I was able to, at the click of a button, take all of the detailed information about that product and create it in QuickBooks. Now, if you're wondering, how did it figure out which inventory asset account to use, what income account to use, what expense account to use? Those are all the settings I was looking at just now in under accounting settings. So once you specify those create item settings, you can literally select all and hit the create button, and those items will get created in QuickBooks. So that's how simple it is to take a product that's in your online store, and you come over to your product catalog. It's not in QuickBooks. It's now in QuickBooks by hitting the create button. And if I go over to store matched, you'll notice SKU Simple, these 4 other items. These are the 4 items that are in my demo store. They're in my QuickBooks catalog, and they're all matched up, and the quantity and prices are totally right. Now, that's the simple process of taking a product from your Shopify store and creating in QuickBooks. You're probably asking the question, what if it's the other way around? What if I have my product catalog in QuickBooks? Can I list the products up into my sales channel? I'm sort of good news, bad news. The bad news is, I'm afraid today Webgility Online only supports a one-way creation of items. So you can take your products from your sales channel and you can create it in QuickBooks. We are actually working, that's the good news, we're working actively on building listings capabilities, so you will be able to take your catalog from QuickBooks and publish it up to your online stores as well. So that feature is in development. I can't give you a full demo of that just yet. We're still sort of in the early mock-up stages, but we are coming up with the ability to not just publish your catalog from your sales channel into QuickBooks, but the other way around. And as you saw from the poll, most of our customers today, because QuickBooks is still fairly rudimentary in terms of its catalog management capabilities, we find most customers, like the poll stated, you already have all of your channel products. So what you really just need is you need your product catalog to be created in QuickBooks, and that's a feature that we already have available. So simply go to product catalog, not in QuickBooks, and you'll be able to create those items there. Listings will be available later this year. We're going to support listings creation in Shopify, in BigCommerce, WooCommerce. For Amazon sellers, you'll be able to create listings, Walmart, Etsy, eBay. All of our major channels, we're going to be supporting listings capabilities later this year. So that's coming. But that at a high level was how product creation happens. And I'm just going to jump back over to the settings area so I can show you when a product is created in QuickBooks, how do I specify a lot of those defaults? So there's an option here. If the product is not found, what do you want to do? Do you want to create a new product when we're posting an order into the QuickBooks and that product's not there? We can also just set an error. But we also have the ability, if a product is not found, we can also just tag it to a standard product. And what that means is, let's say you got an order for a shirt and you don't want to create all of your shirts and all of your variants in QuickBooks. Maybe you don't care about the details in QuickBooks. Some of our customers will use the option where rather than specify every variant, they'll just use one product for like online orders and call it a simple product and record all the revenue. So it's financially accurate, but you're not getting your inventory tracking. The other alternative is item mapping, and I'll talk about that in a second. But if you were to create a new product, this is where you would specify the inventory start date. You can specify the income account, the asset account, setting the sales description as the item description or the name. You can set items to be taxable or not. You can set the quantity to be 0 or whatever the quantity is in your online store. And these are all of the settings that are most common when you're creating a new product from your online store down into QuickBooks. So that's the product catalog capability, and that's how you create items in QuickBooks. So let's look at the second option. What if you don't want to create your products? What if you have some products, maybe you have a catalog in your QuickBooks or in your online store that you don't actually want to do anything with. So for example, Webgility did pull in this sales and hours, which is a service item type from QuickBooks. And because I'm an e-commerce business, sales and hours are not applicable in my online store. So what I can actually do is I can hit ignore. And what ignore will do is it'll take it out of this view and put it into the ignored tab. And therefore, those items don't show up in your matching or syncing logic. They're just being ignored. The other option you have is to map products. So why would you want to map items? Well, you know, it would be a beautiful thing if everyone had this really well organized catalog in your sales channels and in QuickBooks. But more often than not, you started off with a bunch of products in QuickBooks. You then, someone else decided to create a bunch of products in your online store, and now your SKUs are mismatched, or maybe you created a whole catalog by bulk uploading an Excel sheet, and you had a SKU convention there, and QuickBooks has a completely different naming convention. If that happens to you, then mapping will basically give you the ability to map a product that's in your online store to a product in QuickBooks. Now, remember, you don't have to map anything if the matching rules work. So if the SKUs are the same, Webgility will automatically match them up for you. So you can see here under QuickBooks Match, these 4 items are already matched, but I can't see these items in QuickBooks. And so if you want to do a mapping instead, so let's say, I don't know, let's just pull up the SKU fill a shirt and hit ignore. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and hit map. When you do the mapping option, it's really going to tell you, okay, you want to map that item that's in your store to something in QuickBooks. So you just need to select the item to map in QuickBooks. And you'll notice it just pulls up a list of your inventory items because we're mapping inventory products. So it's ignoring the service items that we hit ignore for. And so I can just say, if SKU Fila is bought, map it to SKU, simple, and hit map products. And now that mapping is moved over to the mappings tab. So let me go ahead and hit mappings. And now I can see these 2 products are mapped. So the goal here is to get all of the products that you have in Shopify or your e-commerce channel to eloquently match or map to products in your store so that whenever a sale occurs, you know how to record the sale in QuickBooks. And also, if inventory changes for the product, we want to be able to update the inventory values so everything is consistent and you're not overselling or underselling. And if your prices are different between your channels, you can also use price syncing to keep the price levels up to date in your various channels. So that brings me to my next part of the demo, which is go ahead and hit sync products. I can also get to it from the top here. So what is syncing products? So what we can do is we can sync products only if the products between your channel and your QuickBooks are known and they match up or they're mapped, right? Like if they're matched, great. If they're mapped, great. As long as I know. So you can see these 2 items were actually, I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh here so that we can look at all the latest mappings and sync. And so you can see I have SKU Fila that's mapped to simple. I have a Peter shirt that's on the store, a Peter shirt that's on the right. And what this view is telling me, it's showing me everything that's mismatched in red. And so the store price for this product is $42. The QuickBooks price for this product is $10. The store quantity is 424. QuickBooks quantity is 20. And in this case, for the Peter shirt, the store price is 30. The QuickBooks price is 30. So we're good. So it's basically running a check of what's the price and quantity between those matched or mapped products. And now we have the ability to sync them. So I'm going to do, I can do price and quantity together, or I can do a price sync. And simply I have to select where do I want the values to come from. So let's say I want the values to come from my online store because as most of you, you're tracking your quantities and your catalog in your store. So I'm going to say sync the price from the store, and I'm going to hit, you can see the store price is $42. The QuickBooks price is 10. And just so you know, I'm not doing a switcheroo on you. You can see here the SKU simple is currently a sales price of $10. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit this value and hit price sync. And that should go ahead and change the price in QuickBooks. I'm going to go back over to QuickBooks, hit refresh, and that should have changed from 10 to 42. So you can see the syncing updated the price. Now those values are matched. And let's take this other item, which is let's take maybe both of them and hit quantity. I want the quantity from the store as well. Let's hit sync. And you can see the Peter quantity on hand right now, it says is 100 and simple product is 20. Go back to here, it says completed. I'm gonna hit the refresh button. And you can see the quantity was updated from 10 to 894. and this one is now at 424. So that's at a very high level how easy it is to process, to update your store quantity and price. And you can basically, once you've matched your entire catalog and you have all of your items properly set up, and your catalog view is accurate, then you don't have to constantly fiddle with this. You set the rules, and you can also actually set this to automation. So now that I've showed you how to manually create your catalog, manually do your mappings, well, at the click of a button, it's not exactly manual, but you clicked a button. And if you want to avoid clicking the button entirely, you want to go to automation, and you can set the automation frequency. And with this particular demo account, it's set to nightly. There's an hourly option, and many of you have asked to make that even faster. And I'm happy to report, it should be within the next month or so, we'll have the ability to sync every 5 minutes. So you'll be able to sync your product quantity very frequently. And it's going to basically say, what do you want us to sync? So quantity, price, or quantity only. Do you want to sync quantity as 0? So if your online store's got 0, do you want it to sync if it's negative? You can kind of say that. Otherwise, it's only going to sync when there's a positive value. And again, I won't get into the other details here of automation, but this is where the product catalog automation capability is. And again, under the product tab is where you could set your matching rules. And under the product catalog section, you're able to look at your catalog, adjust your settings, and yeah, sync your products there. I have a I'm gonna go ahead and open up the lines here in a couple of seconds. So if you have any questions, please either put them in the chat window, or I'm gonna unmute everyone here shortly, and you'll be able to ask your questions. And so that was a demo and a quick walkthrough of how you can manage your inventory. I talked a lot about functionality, but I think what's also important is we talk about how should this all work as you're running your day-to-day business. Do you need to log in here all the time? Do you need to be syncing all the time? What I like to do is you want to do the initial lift of getting your product catalog right first. If your product catalog's good, your items match, and you have a system for maintaining your inventory between between the apps, then you're good. Then you set things to automation. You come in periodically and hit a sync. But keep in mind, whenever you have sales in your online channel, Webgility will automatically get the orders. We can run automation to create the transaction of the sales receipt in QuickBooks. When a sales receipt is created, the inventory counts get automatically adjusted. So if you had certain amount of quantity in your Shopify channel, as soon as you create that order in QuickBooks, the quantity will get updated also. But typically, if you're doing purchasing in QuickBooks, new stock comes in, then you want to upload your QuickBooks quantities and make sure that those are updated in your online channels. So the two-way sync is really important. That's why we provide the sync products in both directions. You can sync from your store, or you can sync from QuickBooks. So bidirectional syncing is available. Item creation today is only one directional. It can only create products in QuickBooks and not vice versa. But hopefully this was valuable to you, and you could see how this is all can be automated. If you're a multi-channel seller, then syncing becomes even more valuable to you, because you want to make sure that if you sell certain product in your Amazon channel and you have a different quantity in your Shopify store or your BigCommerce store, then those quantities are all accurate and they match what's in QuickBooks, so you don't oversell. And so multi-channel syncing is also really critical. And the syncing process is about the same depending, no matter which channel you use. And hopefully I was able to give you both kind of a good working demo. And since many of you have products that are, catalogs that are maybe over 1,000, I'm I don't love kind of having to go back and forth. Since we have a piece of software, you should just kind of use the software and select all and kind of start to map that way. But if you like to do things in Excel, we also have an export import capability to do mappings. So you can hit the export products button here. It'll create an Excel or CSV file that'll give you a couple of columns. What's your store SKU and your online SKU? And then you can come back over to the mappings tab and hit the import mappings button. And so for large catalogs, you can do a bulk mapping once and then maybe alter things over time as you add items to your catalog. But you can do an export import of your mappings as well in bulk using this capability. And that's most of what I have to cover in terms of the capabilities in the application today. I do have a couple of UI elements to share with you, a prototype of what we're working on next for our product module. But I wanted to go ahead and open up the phone lines. For those of you that are on the GoToWebinar panel, if you'd like to ask a question, I'm going to unmute all of you. And this is a good sort of a live experiment. If you'd like to ask a question, you are unmuted. So please either just raise a hand or go ahead and use your mic and you can ask us a question. I'm here to take any questions you might have about the product management capabilities, what we have coming in the future. Any questions that you have, please raise your hand and you'll be able to ask the question. In the meantime, I do have someone here on chat that's submitted a question. Do you have a date for when the listing functionality will be available? Yes, so I can't give you a firm date, but we have it planned for somewhere in this next quarter. So Q3, we'll have listings available for a handful of channels. You'll be able to list your products in your online store. I have another question here. If I use automation, will all of my inventory sync without me having to check it or intervene? So yes, if you have automation set up, on the one hand, when orders are received from your channel, your orders will be automatically updated in QuickBooks and your inventory counts will get updated. On the other hand, if you're setting up automation for syncing, then every hour, if you have the advanced plan, I believe that one's covers hourly automation, it'll sync the product catalog on an hourly basis. And very soon, we're going to launch the capability to sync every 5 minutes. So for those of you that do have, a large catalog, and if you're running a pretty significant volume of online orders, you'll be able to sync it every 5 minutes. I already see, do I have another question coming in? Do I have access to the capabilities? Is inventory already in my plan? That's a good question. So I'm going to pop over to Webgility website and just check in your My Account section. I'm just going to log in here. And if you're in Webgility Online, just head over to My Account. Over to My Subscription. And this is a demo account, so I have a few different plans here, but you'll be able to see kind of which subscription you have, and just go ahead and hit view button on the subscription and it'll tell you what's available in the plan. And if you don't have inventory sync, you can upgrade it from there. And in our setup, sort of pro plans don't have inventory syncing. You have to be on an advanced plan to get the inventory syncing capabilities that are available in the product. So that was a look at that. Let me see if there's any other questions. I do have another poll for those of you that I'd love to get your feedback. John, if you wouldn't mind opening up our other poll, which is, getting some feedback from everyone on the call here. What more can we add to our software? Would love to hear that input. John, if you would launch the poll to get those. that input, please?
So we actually don't have the third poll set up. I'm
Okay,
seeing
no
if
worries.
Webam. Okay.
Okay,
I only have the
no
two
worries.
that were already set up, but
Okay. Okay, no worries. Well, for all those of you attending, my email is parag@webgility.com. Happy to take your feedback on any capabilities that you'd like us to build. It seems like some of the folks in the audience are a bit shy, so I did try to unmute. If you want to raise your hand before we wrap up here, if you want to ask any other questions, now be a good time. If not, we can call it a wrap. Okay, looks like we covered everything. Thank you everyone for your time again. I hope you were able to see all of the benefits of keeping your inventory and your business automated with Webgility. I know this can become daunting and can be challenging initially to just get off the ground, but seems like we've got a lot of a lot of experienced sellers with hundreds of items in their catalog. So hopefully you can get your SKUs organized, leverage Webgility to keep all of your item quantities and pricing up to date between your sales channels. Going forward, we are going to have, here's a sneak peek for those of you, we are working on a new version of our product catalog manager, and it's going to give you more automation, more abilities to list, and you'll be able to actually create one central place from which you'll bring in all of your items in your catalog, and you'll be able to manage inventory. We'll also have the ability to manage multiple price points, so you can have QuickBooks prices be something and your online prices be something entirely different based on rules. So lots of cool, exciting features. That's a quick sneak peek of what's coming. But if you have any questions, please let us know. And as always, really appreciate you taking the time to join us on this webinar. Have a great one.